Hello and welcome to a brand new Messor Barbarus ant colony. So this is the first video I'm doing. I've kept ants previously, that was quite a few years ago. I basically just had a last year's Niger colony and also a Mimicry colony. This is the first time I've tried Messor Barbarus. I've decided to go for this because I find it a lot more interesting, this kind of ant. There's a lot more going on, you know. They have majors, minors, lots of different sizes, so it's a lot more interesting in that respect. But also, this is the first time I'm hopefully going to be fully successful. My other ant colonies would normally last a year or two, but the real problem was I didn't have a very good ant nest. So what I had was basically just a homemade one. I couldn't really keep on top of the moisture levels very easily. It was a soil-based one. Every time I added water to the system, what would happen is it would flood their tunnels and they would kind of drown or have to rebuild the tunnels, and there was a lot of disruption because of that. So what I've done now is I've gone ahead and I've actually got myself an acrylic nest. This one should be a lot easier to look after. As you can see here, it's got a couple of like mushroom shaped ceramic plugs which go into a reservoir so that it keeps it nice and moist. That keeps the nest moist, and what's good about this is the ants can go right next to them, so if they want to get a really moist area they can do that. Or they can also have drier areas further away, so that's where they can keep their seeds and other things like that. Because the Messor Barbarus, they actually have seeds and they store it in larders. So I bought myself a big pack of seeds. This will do probably for a year or two. They don't eat a lot, these ants. So they'll hopefully store them in a dry area so it doesn't germinate. As I was saying, this is the my first colony that I've had of Messor Barbara. And they've literally just arrived in the post today from Spain. As you can see, amazingly, they've actually survived the journey. I mean, who'd have thought that they would survive? I mean, I was hoping they'd survive, otherwise I wouldn't have ordered them. But I didn't think that there wouldn't be a single dead one. It seems like every single one has actually survived, so that's great to see. I've just put them now next to a heat mat because it was only about 5 degrees this morning, so it was really cold. This heat mat is very mild. It's probably only about 25 degrees at the moment because in the flat it's about 15. But as soon as I put them to this heat mat, I actually saw them starting to move some of the brood over. And you can see that one there, he's just starting to move some of the seed by the looks of things. So they're definitely responding to the heat. So that's interesting to see. But as I say, they've been in a very cold environment, so they're really quite sleepy at the moment, a bit sluggish, probably almost going into dormancy, I'm not sure. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them in their new formicarium and basically just take the plug off and see how they do. What we'll be doing is I'll be giving them a little bit of water. They've got fresh water from a feeder here. I made sure I purchased a feeder here so I could always have a good supply of fresh water. But what I'm also going to do is I'm going to give them a very small drop of honey water. Now, Messor Barbarus don't normally drink honey water. They tend just to get the carbohydrates from the seeds, and they get some of their proteins and that from the seeds, but most of the proteins from crickets and other insects. But the carbohydrate source is seeds, unlike a lot of ants which get it from a sugar source. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pop that in there. I'm probably going to cover up the test tube here just with a bit of brown packaging paper here. That way it's just going to keep the light off it so they're not too stressed, because I really want to reduce the stress to a minimum. These have had a long journey. They're really going to be finding it quite stressful now in a new environment, in bright lights and that. So I'm going to be covering them up. I'm going to place the test tube into the outworld. That way they can explore the outworld, and when they're ready, they can transfer themselves one by one slowly into the new ant nest. So what I'm going to do now is get some sugar water prepared, set up my tripod, and then I'll film me putting the test tube in, and I'll see how well they respond to it. So I've set up a few things now to try and keep the ants happy. What I've set up is basically a little cover here. It's like a little tent. This is just going to keep the light out of the test tube. So once they actually go inside the formicarium, I'm just going to pick this up with the tweezers, place it over the top like this, and that means that they're going to keep the most of the light out of the nest, and they're not going to be able to see any movement or anything. So that should help keep them a bit calmer. Also, other thing I'm doing is I'm going to give them a tiny bit of sugar water. Couldn't find any honey, unfortunately, but I've got a little cut out half straw here. So what I've done is basically cut the end off a straw. I then cut that in half to make a kind of little half pipe. That's going to hold the water quite nicely for me. I don't want to place it on a tissue or a bit of paper because that's just going to soak it up, and the paper's going to get soggy, get covered in sugar. Which causes issues because they might start transporting that paper around and get stuck in the arena. with this, it should be just a little bit too big for them to transport. Plus, it's not going to soak into it, the water, so the ants are just going to rather drink it up as opposed to transport the whole vessel. So, the reason I like this, because it's very small and it's got a curved neck, it's going to actually support it well. If you wonder what that noise is, that's me just getting the pipette ready. So, because of surface tension, this should sit quite nicely, a little bead in the middle, so I'll just carefully pull this out. And it should hold it nice. I just want one tiny bead of water. That's all it will need. There we are. As you can see, it's held there quite nicely. And what I can now do is pick this up with my tweezers, like so. As you can see, the bead of water will hold. I could probably almost tip this on its side and the bead of water would hold just because of surface tension. So I'll now that's now ready to place in the formicarium once I put the test tube in. I'll start with the test tube because that's the biggest object, and I'll probably knock this over by accident if I don't put the test tube in first. So I'll go ahead and I'll put the test tube in and I'll let you see how the ants are doing. I'll just give you a really quick close-up shot here so you can see exactly what I have in my ant colony. These were actually free, these ants, didn't pay for them, they came free with the formicarium. I'm quite excited to see though how many ants are actually in here, because I wasn't expecting there to be a whole lot of ants, because to be honest they were free. So it's good to see there's probably about 20 or 30 of them, I haven't actually counted. And we also have some media, which are the slightly larger ants. As you can see, they're just starting to wake up now from the warmth from my hand. These were quite docile with it being cold, but you can also see some larvae in there. I don't see a lot of brood or larvae really. It seems to be a lot of adults though, so hopefully that the queen, once she's settled in, will start producing more eggs. The colony will grow quite quickly from then on, hopefully. So I've now placed the test tube inside. You can see they're a little bit agitated because I've actually rotated them slightly. The reason I've done that is there was some sellotape attached to the outside of the test tube. It has some very sticky kind of glue material on it. I'll put that glue material on the bottom, one so that the ants don't get stuck to it, but two because it helps keep the test tube stable and hopefully won't roll around as much. So what I'll do now is I'll carefully remove the cotton ball, which is the stopper at the end here, and that will allow them to explore their new home. There you are, I can see them already realising that the entrances are open. What I'll do is I'll just put this sugar water near the entrance, so that'll be quick and easy for them to find, and if they need it they can have a little drink of sugar. But as I say, Messor Barbarus don't normally need sugar. It's they normally get the carbohydrates from elsewhere. There we go. As you can see, the queen looks healthy and happy. She's walking around there. She's a slight reddish head. She's the largest, obviously, of the ant colony. You can see some of the workers as well carrying around a few brood. As I say, they don't seem to have a huge number of brood at the moment, but that might also be the time of year. It's getting close to the hibernation time now. It's actually November, so I'm going to have to put these into hibernation soon. But I'm going to keep them warm for now, keep them heated, because it is quite cold in this room. It's only about 15. But coincidentally, 15 degrees is the perfect temperature actually to hibernate these at. So I'll let them get established, get settled in warmer temperatures, and then once they're happy and established, then I'll reduce the temperature and I'll let them hibernate as they would normally in the wild.